So good morning, everyone. You are here on this glorious sunny day in the North Country. I say that because we haven't had sun in like a week. So the fact that the sun is shining makes me happy. And on May 6th, for a Way Beyond the Basics Forms training. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Bond, Virginia Bond like James, Virginia like the state. And I work at NARIC as an ISS Integration of Technology Training Specialist. I was a teacher I taught music and instructional tech. I actually did this job in a district for 27 years. And then 5 years ago, next week, I came to NARIC. I was the first training specialist. So I still sit under teacher certificate on the NARIC side of the house. I am a Google certified trainer, and a lot of what you're going to get today is some tips and tricks that I've learned along the way with Google Forms. And this is kind of the exciting thing, I think. Yesterday, I was actually able to attend a only for Google trainers form training from the Google Form engineers. And you guys are getting some of the latest and greatest things that are out there. And I can give you a little bit of updates as we get to the end about some of the things that may be coming. So I'm hoping that this will be helpful and we can kind of work our way through. So you guys are like overtaking different pieces of my life here. Okay, awesome. Form was easy, right? And I'm going in to look at it. A couple of you got it done. I know they are stupid questions. It's okay. I did that on purpose, right? Just to give you a stupid, sometimes it's good to just have some stupid questions to kind of make it easy to go with. All right. So what is your experience with forms? How many of you have been using them, are comfortable in them? What is your experience? And you can either go on off camera, you can just type it in the chat. I don't care. There's not many of you here. How many of you are using forms like twice a week? Yes, maybe?
Once a week for me, maybe.
Once a week, okay. Anybody else using them weekly? Okay, thanks, Jen. Using them weekly. Basically, what are you using them for? Quizzes?
I do like comprehension questions, like after videos, and I also do quizzes.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm hoping that today I can kind of, all right, I love that. Quizzes, homework, classwork, awesome. I'm hoping today I can give you some tips and tricks that'll help you kind of move beyond what I like to call the basics. I think forms is a great way to just collect anything. So I know you guys are still in it, so I'm going to leave it there for right now. So the main thing I want to show you is that if there's a big tip that I have that I find that most people struggle with, this is in the form that you're in right now. And I've used this for multiple sessions. So there's lots of data in it, and I did that on purpose so that we have some data that's kind of bigger than normal. What I find is that if I'm in any kind of Google component except for forms, if I want to save it, if I want to send it, I usually come up here and I can grab the address right out of the address bar, right? Because that makes sense. Or I'll go to share and I'll grab it right out of there. So that makes sense. You cannot do that in a form. Because if you do that in a form, if I grab it from here, you'll notice that the last word is edit. And when I send a form from here, if I took this form and sent it all to you like this from that address in the address bar, you would all then have the ability to change the questions that I'm asking. So we always have to go into send and grab it from here. And I'm going to do this a little bit more in a couple minutes. You can send it by link, which I think is what 90% of us probably do. We send out our email out our, geez, I'm pro Virginia. I'm having brain fart issues today. We send out our forms via a Google link because it's easy, right? I can shorten the URL. I can grab it from here. I can copy. I can send it. I honestly send almost all of my forms that way because it's just targeted. It's the way I need it. But you can also send out forms in a very specific way, and that's by email. So if you have specific people you want to fill it in, you could send it that way. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So what I did is I created a Google Sheet with your email addresses in there. So some of you are going to get another little email from me. Aren't you lucky, right? I can send it here, and you'll notice I have your email addresses. Sharon, you happen to be first. And after your email address, I put a comma, okay? And I'm going to show you why. I'm going to copy these like this. I'm going to highlight them. I'm going to copy them, and I'm going to go into the form, back into the form. I'm still in the send space. And in this email space, I'm going to paste them. And when I do that, you'll notice that you come in and you separate. So I tried this yesterday. This is a new trick that I hadn't tried before because I never send anything this way. If you don't put the commas in, you have to put the commas in here. Forms is the only component within Google. When you type in an email, it doesn't pop in a box. Do you know what I mean when I say that? Like if I go into a Google Calendar and I type in an email and I go to type the next one, it makes a box for that email. Google Forms doesn't do that. Do you guys understand what I mean when I say that, right? It automatically like encapsulates the email so you know you have it right. And if it's not right, it doesn't put a box around it. So I'll show you what that means, like up in here. If I share this right here and I come here and I type in Sharon geez, I'm Sharon, your name for me today is running off the edge of my brain.
BER again. It's two BERs and an ICH.
Thank you. I thought I was right at NARC.org. When I do that, see how I get a circle around it or a box? That means that's a real email address. That happens in every other Google component. It does not happen in Forms. Okay? So in Forms, when you put in email addresses, they just come like this. You got to come in, you got to put a comma after them. So what I did is I put your email addresses in, I put a comma. This all makes sense in a minute, I promise. And now I'm going to send it. Okay. So as soon as I do that, and I come up here and I look at my responses and I see who responded, what I then see are the people who I'm waiting for responses from. I have a list then of who did not reply. So these people are not in the training today, right? So I have these other people that are going to come. They're just not here. So those are people that'll do it later. And what's nice about this is I can see who hasn't responded. So what I've done in the past, right? I've taken this list of who I sent it to and the list of who I need it from, and I go through and check the little boxes. This now gives me that list of who I'm waiting for, and I can actually just push a button and send an email reminder to them to do it. So this is a huge time saver. Now this setup document takes a little bit of time. I've been a huge proponent of teachers kind of either having a document set to do this, like by period, because you could make this for every period, right? I could have another sheet, could be like period 2, right? I could rename this sheet to period 2. Once you have this document set up, and you can have as much data in here as you wanted. Like if I wanted your first name, last name, and then your email addresses in there, I could do that. It's just, this is going to be a document. It's going to save time for me over a period of time. That ability to check who was in here, I think that's a really cool thing. You can also release your scores in here as well. Okay, so let's continue on. So you guys went through and did this. This is not difficult to see. But what I want to look at is some of our responses. Actually, I want to look at colors. I'm going to try to stay in here. I did all of that. I kind of jumped ahead. So first thing, use colors to use colors and custom headers to make your life easier. And the reason I say this is because it is just a simpler way for you to be able to track things. If I come into my drive, and it does look like I'm going off and doing some different things, but it'll make sense in a minute. If I go into my Google Drive, maybe I go into my Google Drive today. Wow, that is really strange. I'm going to let that load. And I use colors. I can look for my forms by colors. So I'm going to come up here into the advanced search. And I'm going to go by type, but I'm just going to pull my forms. So I'm going to pull every form I have. And I have to be honest with you guys. I have so many forms. I use it for so many things, but I use colors so that they're easier to find. Because if I just leave them on the default purple, I am not going to have a clue what color they are, right? So you can see in here that they're different colors with different headers. It makes it easier for me to find the things I'm looking for. Does that make sense? Instead of just the default purple, right? Because it's default purple, right? So what if I want to change it? I can come up into the header box, which is right up in here, right? And I can change that through the custom themes. So you're going to go to the color palette when you want to change things. So let's say I really like this color, but I want to change the theme color to a brighter green. I can do that because I have those options. I also can upload my own images. When I come in here, I can either grab the images that they have, right? And there are lots. I can upload something, or I can use some of the photos that I already have in existence, right? So if you wanted to use something like this instead and just say insert that picture is going to, all right, so I'm going to add that in there, right? Maybe not the best thing for today, but it'll work. You'll notice when I change the picture, it also changes the color scheme for it. So if you really want this picture, but you don't like that color scheme, you can come over here and you can grab a new color and say, hey, I really want like a bluish. Yeah, that looks great. You can add it in, and then you can even change your background colors. So it's a really nice way to customize your components. And it's a nice way to just kind of engage things. If you're using a specific color for a classroom, you might want to stay in that color scheme. If you're an elementary teacher or a special ed provider, you may want to say, like, my 9th graders use one color, my 10th graders use another color. That's another way to do it. Elementary teachers may want to have a color for science, a color for math, a color for ELA, a color, right? It's just an easier way to color coordinate that. And I think middle school teachers are the bomb at that because they try to teach kids how to be organized, of which they are not. How about we say this could match, not math? Headers can match your classroom colors. Okay, so also, if you are going to collect some kind of data, make a form for it. And it does not necessarily need to be for something like a quiz. And this is where I like to push people's concept of how to use it. When I was teaching, we had to keep track of our parent contact. So we had to keep track of it all. We were a Title I school, so we had to keep track of all the parent contacts that we had. That got to be overwhelming because I had 479 students, right? So I had a lot of students and I had to keep track of when I contacted a parent in any way. So I had to like a log that I had to fill out, and like I had a lot of paper, and I was required to send contact to every parent within the first 10 weeks of school. I did a lot of postcards, right? That I just kind of could check off things. So, but I had to keep track of who I contacted and how. So I would have some on a piece of paper. I might have some in a log. I might have some on an email. So what I thought would be a really great way to do that is to create a form that I could use, where this would be a form for me to use to keep track of my contact. So I could put the date, who the parent was, the parent to who, the name of the guardian I was dealing with, the type of contact, email, phone, text, classroom. It could be a postcard, whatever. And then I would actually copy and paste the conversation in here so I have it. And then when I save it, I have it all in one place. So an example, and I just have one entry in here. So the guardian who I was talking about, I can have that information in here that I'm going to use with that person. right? And I have it all here. So if I have 20 of these or 479 of them, and I need to see how many times I talked to Becca's parents, I then have a record of how I did that. So just really think out of the box when you're thinking about collecting data. All right, so let's look at some sections. So you'll notice that in the form that you used today, you had multiple sections. I'm going to close to the right here. Okay, so you'll notice that I set it up with multiple sections. And so section 1 and then section 2. So if I want to build sections in, say like maybe here and I want to split it, I can come over here on the side and I can add a section in. And this now makes it section 2 out of 3. Now, why are sections good to use? Number one, it breaks up information. And this might be really valuable as we get a little closer down the line. I'm hoping I didn't just lose you guys because I just can't see you now. Okay, that is weird. I lost.
We're here.
Okay, good. I'm like, all of a sudden your pictures are gone. Okay, that's weird. I'm still here. I'm going to stop sharing my video because that might be me breaking that up. That's weird. Okay. When you're in some large pieces, like a large test, it's going to be nice to have this ability to break it into smaller chunks for your students. Good news, coming soon, probably for next school year, you're going to have the ability to go into draft. And what that means is the draft component is going to be, your students are going to be able to save their responses and come back to them within a 30-day format. So what that basically means is you're going to be able to give a quiz to students and they're going to have 30 days to finish it, which is great. So if you want to give, say, a longer biology exam, say a teacher's going to give a biology test, but it's longer and a student cannot finish it in one setting, they're going to have the ability to come in and right up here in the top corner, there's going to be a place for them to click saved draft responses. Then they're going to be able to come back in and finish it at another time. I think, we'll have to think about how we're going to use that. That is probably rolling out during the summer. But if you are interested in that, and I'm looking through my notes from yesterday, I may need to find the link again, but that can be turned on, the beta, so the test to try that out can be turned on for districts, but they need to reach out. I can give them a link. It has to be done by a Google admin. So whoever your Google admin is in your district, they have to fill out a Google form to be added into that beta so people can try it right now. I think it's a really nice feature to see, to be able to try.
That's Virginia, I actually had an experience with that where I have a student that needed extended time and unfortunately could not, save his responses. So
Right.
we ended up writing his responses down on a piece of paper and then re-entering them into a form later. So
Yeah.
this is going to be awesome for students who have extended time.
It is, and that really is, I think, one of those like game changers for forms, right? So the Google trainers were in this training yesterday and somebody was like, well, it's still not going to fix the 150 question test. That's right. And I'm kind of like, oh my God, why would anybody give that, right? The 150 question test. I've seen that in action, so I understand, to kind of just put it all into one test. So the solution to that is divided into smaller pieces. You could take a 150 question test and put it into 350 question tests, right? Which would actually be easier for you and easier for them and not overwhelming for a student. But yeah, Sharon, you are like spot on. That is perfect for students with disabilities, any student with extended time. Number one, it's also going to take the anxiety away from them. And I think that's an awesome feature. I'm so glad that Google has kind of walked down this road. Okay, so let's keep going. Sections. Here's a new little thing. I don't know if it's new, but I think I might have just noticed it for the first time. You can collapse your sections. If you see what I'm doing, I can collapse my sections so I can see my questions that are there, and then I can actually move them around. So I can build them and I can move them around if I get them done and I'm like, yeah, I don't like the way I made them. I want to do that in a little different way. So that's one thing that I think is really cool. Another thing that's really cool, and this was a suggestion that came from one of the trainers, and I was like, oh, that's a good idea. You can actually put your information, if you're going to collect information from your students on a form, like, so let's go back in here, and I think I collected email from you. I did. So in here, I collected email. If I want to do my form so that it collects email and name from my students, I could put that in section 1, and then I could put all my questions in section 2 and shuffle my order for section 2. That would really, they use the language of cheating mitigation, which I think is a really great thing to really think about. Okay, so also another thing when you're using sections, so like this one, here's a question. The answer is like color is relative. This question, no matter what your answer was, you were right. So, and you'll see that I required it, but what I can do is I can come in here and I can go to a section based on an answer. So this is a little different depending on every question. Some are a little different. They call this go-to logic. So if you answered blue, I am going to have you go to section 2. The hardest thing about setting up a form like this is the setup for the teacher. They can quickly get out of hand. And what I like to tell teachers is the best way is to literally take a piece of paper and map out what you want. Okay, so if they answered it correctly, so question 1, if they answered it correctly, I'm going to let them go to section 2. If they answered it incorrectly, I'm going to put a couple other questions down here for review for them. They can continue to next question. You'll notice that's one of the options. Continue to section 1, play form, right? You keep going down. You can go to the next question. So you can make these super exciting. And that's kind of how adventures, build your own adventure works. Like if you answer this option, you go to section 2, but if you answer the second option, you go to section 3. So that's how they work, but they just quickly get out of control. And I still, for myself, I build them out as maps. I draw out the answers of how they're going to go with answers, and that makes it much easier for me to follow along with them. Next, settings. So let's talk about those settings that are in your form. And form has so many settings. They are literally all over the place. So yesterday I had oh, I didn't even know that existed kind of moment. So that's, like shocking. Not shocking, but it's more the fact that I never use a feature because I send Google Forms almost always by link. I didn't know I could do that email component. I was like, oh, that's awesome. I love that. But the second one was this. There are settings many places. So the first one I'm going to do is take you to default settings. I have wanted forever for this like required to be turned on. I hate the fact that I have to come in and make a question, turn require on. So go all the way over to your dots, not your gear, to your dots. Click on your dots, go to the bottom in the preferences, and you have some default preferences in here. So in a form, I want every form I ever make to collect an email address, and I want it to make questions required. I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, oh. I found out it's pretty new. I probably just missed the email that it came through on, but I was like, okay, that makes my life awesome. Because if I default it to make it required, the few times that it's not required, I can just I can turn it off, right? It just makes my life a lot easier. You can also, if you, like Jen, if you use this all the time and you always have every one of your questions be 10 points, you can set them. I do 10-point quizzes. They're always 10 points. That's the way it goes. You can do that for your quizzes. So I just think it makes it easy. So you just say that. That's setting number 1. You also have the settings in here, right? You have some settings in here based around your quiz. So think about what you really want when you make a quiz. Now, if you are in this option in a domain, you have locked mode for Chromebooks. I'm in my personal account. So lock mode for Chromebooks will allow your students to not navigate to another web page. Only works on a Chromebook. Does not work on a phone, does not work on a laptop, and that Chromebook must be managed. which means it has to be a district device. Can kids get around that? They sure can. They can take a form on a phone, and we can't help students that actually have multiple devices in front of them. We can do the best we can. But I think locked mode for Chromebooks is going to be great when we're back face to face with our kids and we can see what they're doing. That's going to help a lot.
Virginia, to block it on a Chromebook, does it need to be on the network for the school, or can it be they're taking it at home on a school issued device?
On a school issued device. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So it's a great question, right? It does not have to be in the network. It just has to be managed by the school. Okay, so that's really helpful. So another way around that, and to just kind of think this way. So if you send a form by link, glad you brought that up, that question. If you send a form by link, a student could literally be in any account, click on the link and be able to get into the form, right? But if you send it to them by email, the way we did it before, I showed you before, the only email account that can get into that is the one that's attached to their school account. It's like trickery. I love trickery. It's all good. I like that, like we can trick them into doing what we want. Okay, so you have your quizzes options. Think about what you really want for your quizzes. What do you want to collect from your students? If you are going to use a form over and over, this one right here, I could limit to one response, right? That would be simple. And I could also let you see summary charts and text responses afterwards. You just have to think about what you're using and how you're using it. I think showing charts is really good if you're doing an anonymous survey with your students and you want to, or review questions, and you don't need to know who answered what. You just want to know how your students are doing. I think that's a helpful thing to have. Every question also comes with its own like little set of settings. Now they're not called settings, but you can do some different things in here. Like in this one, because it's multiple choice, I can actually shuffle the order when it goes out to you. That works on, anything to do with cheating. I think anytime we have those options, we can make it so students can't cheat. So quiz mode, when you're going to go into quiz mode, go to the setting first, go to quizzes and turn that on. Or if you're coming out of classroom, if you're coming from classroom to build it, you're going to go into create a quiz. It will automatically start it as a quiz. So just think those are the two different ways. Do I want to use one setting? Do I not want to? So when we're in those settings, like shuffle your answers, we already talked about, like they used to call these branching forms, kind of moving through. I think one of the coolest things that most people don't know exists, I'm going to come to the bottom of this form. I'm going to add a question right in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to import questions. So you can pull any other form that's there and I can pull questions from it. So let's say I wanted to use this form right here. So this is a 201 form. I'm just going to select it. And it says, hey, here's the forms. Here's the questions on that form. Which ones do you want? I can select them all. Or I can say, you know what? I only want this one and this one. And I'm going to import those two questions. That means I don't have to write my questions again, which I don't know about you, but I love not having to do work again. So you'll notice I put in red a great trick. And this came from another trainer that I was like, oh, that is awesome, right? You can build a master form where you put all the different types of questions you ask and always pull from that form. That one could have 150 questions, right? So if you ask the same type of questions all the time, you still have the ability to come into this and edit this, right? So I don't know who said they did a comprehension question, Jen, that might have been you. And, she might want some of the same kind of comprehension questions all the time. She could have those basic questions in a master form and pull it over. And she would just call that master form, right? And then she'd pull her questions from that all the time. I think that can be really valuable. Or you can also have some that are like, especially if they have long detailed descriptions, you can put them in there and have it that way. So I think that's a really nice trick that I really liked. I was like, wow, that's fantastic. Now let's talk about responses. So I'm up here in responses. When we think about responses, there's really 4 ways to get a response. I can see a summary of how everybody answered. I can see question by question, and then I can navigate through these, right? I can navigate through the questions and I can see who answered what. Like I had 21 people say the sky is blue. Someone said it's relative. Someone said it's chartreuse. I love this person, right? And then I can actually see individual responses. So I actually answered the form and then I can pull all of the emails that came through. I also can come up here and push this form to a Google spreadsheet. Now, this is how I use forms all the time. It's pretty rare. I'll look at charts now and then, but not often, because what I like about a spreadsheet is that I am able to see my responses from my people, whoever took it. And you'll notice that I have this, I've used this form before. I have used this response before, this spreadsheet before, so it automatically populated. And what I always do is I always come in and I freeze my top row so that I can move my data. And then the next thing I always do is I come over to my format and I text wrap my first row too, so I can actually see the responses. So, and then I can actually scroll along and I can look at my responses when they came in, who did it where, right? I really like this because it also allows me to kind of group my questions the way they came in, right? And then I can actually use this data and I can manipulate this data for how I need to use it. So I tend to use sheets more than anything else. I don't use another form for my data when it comes in. Okay. So this is another really cool feature. So I click send. I lied to you. So totally lied to you. When I'm in responses, I come to the 3 dots. And in here, you can get an email notification for new responses. So if you send a test out to your students, 15 of them out of the 20 respond, and you've checked all those, but now you're waiting for your last 5, you can turn this on right here. And every time someone responds to that, you will get an email to yourself. I love that. That is how my Google form works. Excuse me, if you take the async options for any of my trainings, I just get an email notification when it comes in. And while we're in here, let me show you another thing. So you can go into add-ons, which I have a little further down the road. I have a very specific add-on added to mine. I'll show you what it looks like. And you'll see there are lots of form options for add-ons. Like if you just want to see where there's duplicates, you can do that. Do you want to limit the response? This would be great if you were doing a survey and you only want to take the first 100 answers. You can say, I'm only going to let 100 people answer that, right? You could send it out to tons of people. First 100 in, that's great. There's no better one. You kind of just need to know what you want. You may want to go do a Google search and say, I need a form that will let me do limitations, right? How to make time trackers on them. There's lots of options that they will do. I have an add-on called form notifications. And I've been using this for a really long time. And I'm hoping it's going to pop up. And it typically pops up over on the side and it might not be working. Yep. So close. Go to, yeah, I got it all set up. So I may have to put this back on. Form notifications, it's very much like email, except I can set it so I get an email notification after every a specific number of forms come in. So if I send it to a lot of people and I want to check it, but I don't want to check it all the time, and I don't want an email notification when every one comes in, I can set it so I get an email notification when every 5 come in, right? After every 5, I'll get an email notification. I can go check it. And then if I'm looking for my last couple, I can change it down to 1. I also can email it to multiple people. So that for me is the reason why I like that one, because it's winner, winner, chicken dinner. If I'm working with someone, the email notification is only going to go to, this email notification is only going to go to the creator of the form, the owner of the form. It's not going to go to collaborators. When I use that form notification, I can send it to myself. I could send it to Sharon. I could send it to Jen. So anybody maybe that was co-teaching with me. And that's really helpful too, so they can be checking forms as well to see who's in there and who's not in there. I think that's a huge piece. You can also pull a chart from here. So I go back out to my responses, right? And I look at my questions, maybe my summaries, and I look at this one in here and I say, okay, over here, there's a little button and I can put copy that chart. Maybe I want to use this and it says it's copied to a clipboard. And then I could bring it out here and I can actually throw it onto, here's my clipboard, and I can say, I want to paste the values only. Maybe it's going to go today. Maybe it's not going to go today. It's got a brain of its own. Let's go see if I can put it down in here. We'll grab it. I'm going to copy it to the clipboard, copy the chart, and then I'm going to come out here and I can paste it. So there it goes. So I pasted it into a document, which is really nice because you can grab data from your students. If you're a math teacher, you can grab data from your students and then you can have students look at that and use it because that can be very helpful. Okay. So let me keep going. I am almost done. And then, I gotta go back up. So add-ons, like I said, you want to reuse a form. Anytime you take a form and you want to reuse it, you can copy and paste. No, sorry, brain went dead. If you want to reuse a form, make a copy of it. It strips out all the answers of it and you have the original form back. Just rename it, right? I use that a lot and it's a simple thing to do. Now, it won't save some of your settings like email notifications. That's just something to keep in mind. So some ways to use it. And this is like out of the box. I feel like everybody in the world uses it for a quiz, right? Everybody in the world uses quizzes. But you could do surveys, permission slips. I would have loved to be able to do permission slips. Work submission. Let me show you what that looks like. So if I'm going to go out to my questions, you have in here a, if I put a question at the end, come down to the bottom, I'm going to add a question. You have a form upload, right? Right in here. Excuse me, a file upload, continue. With a file upload, your students can give you a type of file type. So if you need them to give you a document, they can do that. You can give them the maximum number of files. You can do a size. It only works within the domain. So Sharon, it's only going to work at NARIC.org. Okay. For you girls at BKW, it's only going to work at BKW. So you can't have someone outside the domain add something into that. But that's really great for so many different things because it's all going to just kind of go into a folder. When you do that and you say view the folder, it literally makes a folder and it puts everything, it makes its own little folder and it puts everything right in there. Okay. So you'll see play form June 2 file responses. That's where the file responses will go. It gives you the place. You don't have to build it. It does it for you. So you don't have to have papers coming at you and you need to figure out where they go. This will have them all go that way. What's nice about this, so if you're working with parents too, they could send you an image, right? They could just take a picture of it and send it to you. Just so helpful in so many ways, especially right now when we don't want a lot of contact between papers coming from house to person to house. I mean, that's a great way to kind of clean things up. So don't forget SEL checks. It would be great if I could spell. And then like you can do any kind of SEL check in there. What I did is I put some great resources down at the bottom, including some add-ons. And what I also included in here is a couple other, like a full Google Forms training that I did, like a beginner training. If you want to see it, just a little gift to you. So there we go. Any questions? And I'm going to stop sharing. Any questions? And I have like 3 minutes. Woohoo! I love it when I forget to reset my timer and I still made it under the 45 minutes. Good girl me. Questions? No questions?
No, I don't have any. I actually have a group of kids trickling in. So if I can, I'm going to scoot out so I can start.
Oh, you're good, Jen. Yeah, no
Thank
problem.
you so much. Have a great day.
Well, yeah, you too. So for those of you that were in yesterday's session, yesterday's sessions, I'm so sorry I did not get that information sent out. It is on my list for, I'm doing it right now. So that's going to be my next thing I'm going to do. For everybody else, you will get later today. I really promise it'll be later today. You get a link to this recording. You will get a link to the document, and you will also get, there'll be a Google form in there that you don't have to fill out, right? So don't worry about that. It'll be, you attended live. When you attend live, you'll be all done, and your attendance will be marked as complete within Frontline. So always feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And I'm going to stay for a few minutes, so let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to stop recording.
Okay,
have
thanks,
any-
Virginia.